So welcome everyone to the Conspectus Cloud webinar for the month of August. Today, our webinar will be talking about eradicating or definitely reducing RFIs, requests for information, and the discovery of true unlimited collaboration. This is geared looking at it from the perspective of the AE, architecture and engineer community. But of course, we welcome, if you're not necessarily an architect or an engineer, you'll definitely still learn some information about how to help reduce RFIs on your project. Our speaker for this webinar is Steve Gantner. He is our Executive Vice President and Senior Specifier out of St. Louis, Missouri. So he's on. We also have Ted Kenny. He is on. He is our Director of Sales for Conspectus Cloud. And I do see a couple of other Conspectus folks. Our other Executive Vice President, Elias Saltz, and our Conspectus Cloud Customer Success Specialist, Chris Price. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to move forward with my slides. This is interactive, some of the slides, so I'll walk you through when that slide comes up. Oops, let's see here. And make sure I can do this. Well, I just was bragging about having 2 screens, and maybe I hope I can do this. Hold on one second. Sorry, it's going to take me just a minute to be coordinated. Okay. Here we go. Oh, and I'm Tina Montone. Okay, so we would like to know who else is here. So if you could go to menti.com either on your phone or on another window, and you can type in the code here at the top, 34995468, and you should see these options, what your role on the project team is.
If you're a specifier, just put down the group you represent or you specify for, architect or engineer. And if anyone's having any difficulty, just let us know.
Mm-hmm. So we either have some shy folks or people who can't get into Menti yet. Oh, there we go. We have 1 BPM.
All right. It takes a little bit to get into Menti.
Mm-hmm.
3 architects. I'm one of those, by the way. So. Yeah, I just kind of want to get a feel for who's in the audience. That's why we're asking this question.
Yeah. Okay. We have another. All right. So we.
They're still going. They're still going.
Okay,
If the other doesn't mind and isn't too shy, would you mind sharing what you do? If not, that's fine. I understand. Unless Tina permanently muted everyone.
No. I don't think I did.
Okay.
No, I didn't see anything else come up where I could add what it was, but the other is specifier. But right now I'm not employed with a particular company. So I'm in between, I'm not at my next step yet, still trying to determine my next step.
Okay. Well, you're still a valuable part of the community. Architecture or engineering specifier?
Oh, architectural.
Okay.
Architectural. All right.
So we'll count you as 6. There'll be 6 of us.
Yep.
Alex is recruiting, Rhonda.
All right. So we'll move on to the next slide here. Thank you, everybody, for testing out Menti, making sure that that works. So, Steve, can you give us a little bit of background on who Conspectus is and provide some insight to the size and scope of the firm with a little bit of history?
I'll do as best as I can. Conspectus, we're a nationwide specification independent specifying company. Actually, we go worldwide. We've got some projects overseas in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, over in the Caribbean. And we were founded in 1992 by Dave Stutzman, who's the person in the middle photograph, the white hair on the left. I'm on the, and then we've partnered with Dave. Elias and I are slowly but quickly learning the business, and we'll be taking over when if Dave ever decides to retire. And then you can see our group of specifiers and marketing and sales on the far right picture. We have 16 currently specifiers on staff. We have 7 registered architects in that group of 16. We've got 2 project managers who help us track our projects and what we're doing, and we've got 2 marketing folks, both of them on this call. And recently, this past year, we've broken into talking about Conspectus Cloud amongst people other than Conspecticians, us, and we're selling this service to others. And we've got 2 sales people and a general manager running that department. So, got quite a few people on staff.
All right. So oftentimes we see that specifications are produced when the design team feels the pinch to get them done. Their obligations, obviously, to create that second half of the document set. So, Steve, what is the Conspectus approach to specifications?
Our approach is transparency. We think throughout the entire process, transparency can transform the process. And it's our approach to specifications in general. It's a simple concept. We'd like to use uniformat as a common thread from concept through building operations, and then you can continue on through remodels and other things beyond that. But you can see the traditional approach on the top, what we're kind of call silos. You got concept design, then there's a pause period, then you move into the schematic design period, and that's sort of a confusing period for some folks in specifications, because oftentimes an architect or an engineer will ask you for an outline spec, and it's like, what is an outline spec? Because everyone has their own definition of that. Generally speaking, it's a design narrative type of item, which we'll explain in a little bit, fits perfectly into uniformat. And then you have a little pause period there while you evaluate the cost and the program and make sure it can be done. Move into design development. You should be developing your specifications more thoroughly using the approach of refining your uniformat elements, or in traditional cases, using master format. Then you pause to reevaluate everything and move into construction documents. And when I say pause, it's pretty much just submissions to the owner, and that pause could vary depending on the scope of the project. It could be nothing, it could be something significant. And then moving into construction documents is where you really focus on the construction specifications, the master format 3-part specs, along with the drawings. And then you have that time when you bid the project, whether it's design bid build or traditional design build, or another construction manager or design build scenario. And then you start the construction, and you move once the owner takes occupancy. You've got all that time when you're operating the building, and you've got to maintain everything. So what we're trying to do with the Conspectus approach is take uniformat through everything, keep it up to date through construction documents, so that on the operations side, of the manual, you've got all of your elements and systems identified, and you've got your ways to take care of things, where to find information, why it was that way, and where you can find other information. So, and by the way, I am going to be speaking in the architect's perspective, which is very similar to the engineers. But if you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to ask. So with that, I'm going to pause. Are there any questions? Okay. You can type them into the chat as well if you'd like. Tina's monitoring that.
So we have this approach, which is a little bit different. And now we also have introduced a tool that supports this approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the tool is that helps connect all of these, or I should say, remove the silos and connect the uniformat to master format? What is the secret behind this?
It's no secret. What we're trying to do is we've developed a system. Dave had this idea many years ago. I think he and I talked about it before I even came to work here 7 or 8 years ago at a Spark conference. And he was explaining to me his theories there, and he's been developing it ever since. And Elias and I are continuing on that development with him to make sure that it's functioning in the way we would like it to function as specifiers. So keeping in mind, this is a specifying tool that is built by specifiers, and we mean it for the entire team. And we'll describe a little bit more in general in a minute. But basically, we're going to preach collaboration here. We've actually collaborated while we're building this tool too. So for the past 6 years, we've been using this internally at Conspectus, and we've been trying to break it. And as we've found things, we've tweaked it and made it to what we think is the best product that we have available at the moment. And we decided that within the last year to go ahead and invite other people to use the system too, because we believe in it so much. We also take that collaborative approach to developing further refinements to the software. And I want to use an example. We just had a call this morning where we discussed wish lists. I guess we'd call it a wish list, or requests, needs of other people that are subscribers or potential subscribers. And we're going to develop a new suite of information that we're going to promote and get developed within the next few months and get that released hopefully before the end of the year. So we take that collaborative approach to everything we do, specifications through development of the software.
So this tool and the technology truly supports the authentic communication of the project team. So typically pricing is discussed at the end of a presentation, but let's bring it to the front because it really paints a clear picture of how this collaboration can happen in the most logistical sense through subscriptions and seats. Can you explain how traditional platforms work versus a collaborative pricing platform?
Certainly, and I'm not going to get into numbers. If you're interested in numbers, you talk to Ted. He's the professional in that one. But generally speaking, when you're talking the other software systems out there, they're selling the license per seat. So that means, like, for instance, as you see on the screen, you got one structural engineer, you pay 1 seat license. If you need another engineer on board, you'd pay another seat license. As you're adding people, you're adding seat licenses to use the software. And what we think is that prohibits the growth and the collaboration in the spec process. So we don't want to get in the way of you doing this. So our approach is, if the firm subscribes, everyone on your project teams can use the software. I've got an example I'll talk to you about in a little bit. But what we mean by that is, as the architect or engineer, we want you to invite everybody possible to use this software, to make comments on it, and to make it the best possible outcome available for the owner. That collaboration will allow you to minimize your RFIs, minimize your change orders. I mean, we really like to eliminate all of that, but it won't happen. We know that. But we can minimize that. And by minimizing that, I'll give you a dollar amount later on about what that costs as an architect or an engineer to answer RFIs. So we really are striving for just high quality documents that are well coordinated with all members of the team.
Okay, so we have another poll here. We would like to know who typically contributes to your specifications. So if you go into menti.com and use the same code, or if you have that app or that website still up, you should be able to just roll to the next question. So is it just the specifier who is creating the specifications? Project architect, project engineer, product tech, your tech reps, do they get involved?
And
The
while
installer?
folks are responding here, I just wanted to quickly expand on what Steve said. So just so everyone understands the licensing model, I think the really key piece of it is it's a universal license for the entire firm, and it enables the firm to have full admin privileges to add in the folks that Steve mentioned at any time. And I know we've always seen it in the industry when you need to add people to a project. It's normally because there are deadlines. So to have to go through the process of reaching out to your software provider, adding an additional seat, that takes time, and especially for large firms, going through the procurement and fulfillment process can take weeks, if not months. So with us, it's seamless. You never have to be nickel and dime to add an additional seat. You simply just go into the project and add the user directly to the project. Same thing goes at a firm level. You can easily add people whenever you'd like, and you do have full control over what those individuals can do within the platform. So you can set their permissions to participate within the project or within the firm at multiple different levels.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah.
You're perfect. You're leading us into the next one here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry if I got ahead of things there.
No,
That's okay.
no,
That's
it's
okay.
awesome. Thank you. So once the project team is invited to the project, what is one of the most beneficial functions? Oh, wait a minute. I think I got a hold of myself, ahead of myself. Let me just see here. Did I just, okay. Sorry, folks. So once the project team is invited, what is the beneficial functions of communicating and managing these decisions?
Okay. I'm gonna get to that in just a second. Tina, I saw a question or a statement pop up from Conrad, and it says we take input but don't allow reps or installers to directly edit. We do the same thing, Conrad, and I will show you in just a few minutes how you can do that by allowing them to not edit your specification, but look at your specification and provide feedback without changing the content. So I'll show you that in a minute, but that's a valid point. We kind of don't want people making changes to our specs without our knowledge. So I understand.
Mhm.
So what do the architect, engineer, contractor, and owner all receive from being in this platform? It's really all about the location. All the members of the project team reviewing the same content in one spot, one location. So what we do is we ask questions, provide answers, manage decisions, provide input with controlled communications. And what I was just mentioning, Conrad, there's levels of authorship that allow for controlled input within the system. So we can do that by using permissions. There are varying levels of authorship, everything from an administrator all the way down to a viewer. Interactions help keep everyone notified of what's going on and when it's happening. There are precise controls in that. And then we have an audit trail, something that's kind of unique to us, I believe. And what that audit trail does is it keeps an accurate record of who made what changes, when they made them. And you can go back and review that audit trail at any time. If a change was made without your knowledge, you can find out potentially who made that change and find out why. And if it's valid, keep it. If not, you can change it back. But we'll cover audit trail a little bit more in depth in a few minutes.
So we talked about who contributes. Now the question is, how do you edit your documents? How do you edit your specifications? And this is an open-ended question. So do you do track changes in a Word document? Do you redline on a piece of paper? Do you print PDFs? Left it open-ended to see if there's all the different methods that different firms use.
Okay, track changes in Word docs. Okay. Bluebeam Studio markups. That's a love-hate relationship, I think. It's nice to get them, but I get concerned sometimes because Conspectus Cloud is kind of built for the commenting feature, and I wish people would take more advantage of that. Primarily PDF and comments. Okay. All right. Anyone else
Okay.
still typing? We can probably go ahead,
Oh.
Tina.
Okay. So a lot of people can be invited to the project, into one project, as we were talking about before. So how can the participation be organized? How can the communication be controlled?
So was mentioning earlier about commenting, and a universal license will allow every member you invite to comment on the project, except for a viewer. So by commenting, what we're talking about is a actual um, a live link where if somebody happens to be working in the same section, in this instance, we're talking structural steel framing. So Michael made a question or asked a question of Ted, and Ted replied. And the benefit of this is it's real time. So if, for instance, Ted says, I'm working on this spec right now, can you take a look while with me? You can both have that interaction. If not, there is a way that we'll show notifications here in a minute, but Ted will see that in his inbox email, either instantaneously that someone's looking at the specs, or he'll get a summary whenever he chooses. So there's multiple ways, but the point is to get the comments in that section pertaining to the item in question.
And so this also covers how the communication can be controlled through the through the flexible permissions, which you talked about a little bit before. So I don't know if you want to go into this a little bit more.
Yeah, I want to briefly touch on each of the permissions. The administrator has overall control over everything. So in our firm, in Conspectus, we have the primary specifier as an administrator, and we request they make one of the project managers and either one of the partners an administrator as well, because those are the ones that can add and remove participants from a project. So for instance, if the PA or the specifier happens to be out sick one day, someone can go in and make a change to allow someone else to work on it or get information out of that project for them. Author is just one step down from an administrator. They just can't assign, add or remove participants from the project. An editor can do just about anything they need to do to edit the documentation. And then down to commenter, I really love the commenter feature. Generally speaking, I make everyone a commenter in the project because I want your feedback on the specification. And you're allowed then to highlight a section of text that you have a question on or want something changed, and you could put that in there. As a specifier, I can see it, and if I agree with you, I can say, change. I don't have to say anything. I can just resolve the comment, make the change, and you'll be happy. If I disagree with it, I can comment why, and then we'll have a continuing conversation, either through the comment tool or pick up the phone and talk to each other, depending on how complicated matters are. But this also gives you a record of the discussions you've been having too. So say, for instance, as the PAs change on jobs, sometimes they get pulled off of a job to go to another one or something. That decision has been made. You don't need to revisit those decisions. So commenting, I think, in Conspectus Cloud is very, very good. And then we've got viewer. Because the intention was to use Conspectus Cloud throughout the entire process, sort of like what Revit is doing and they're doing with Revisto and other softwares. A superintendent can have a tablet on the job site with the actual live most current version of the specification. You can just make them a viewer. They can go around, they can check things, they can look at the specifications. And this is why I also like to have the comment feature on. If they have a question, they can ask a question. But if you just want to make them a viewer so they just see what decisions are, there's really no need to have printed paper project manuals on a job site anymore. It can all be done electronically. So I hope that explains a little bit. Any questions on permissions? Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about interaction. So permissions are established. How does the interaction take place within the project, and how does the communication remain organized and accountable?
Okay. So in this instance, you see email notifications. You can set these notifications. We've given the chance to do it never. Please don't ever do never. You want to get those in your email notifications as you're working on your projects. However, getting instantaneous comments when someone's reviewing a spec could be kind of tedious because you're getting a notification every time someone comments. I typically do daily, and those emails show up in my desk inbox at 7 a.m. Eastern every day. The benefit of the email is you can open that email up, and by just simply clicking the link in the email, it will take you right to that spot in the project manual, and you can address that comment at that time. So it's sort of a to-do / checklist after somebody's reviewed your spec. It's a great tool. Love it. The other option is if you're really super busy and you're working on multiple projects, you can get them done weekly. If you're sort of a project architect, just want to keep an eye on things, that's probably the recommended way to do it. Just get them once a week. If you want to take a more active approach, do it differently. Then as we update masters, we have notifications sent out. You can ask to get those. This is one where you could do never if you wish, because you'll get notified in that spec section if there's a master update available. Or you can get them the same way. You can get them instantly, every daily and weekly. And I've recently talked to a few people who say, I keep getting these emails about master updates. What do I do with them? Well, you're just viewing and commenting right now. There's nothing you need to do with them. Just go ahead and here's how you turn it off. And if you ever need to turn them back on, you can do it that way. So that's how we do that. Another good feature is, as you can see, there's Joe Minerick here is one of our specifiers. He asked a question, and you can see that 1 of 11. It tells you how many comments are in that section. So this particular section has 11 comments. If you see the 3 dots, that gives you your options to edit the comment, resolve the comment, or add to it comment. Then below it, you'll see there's a little eyeball signature, sort of like the CBS logo. And really, that's just to let you know that they've seen your comment. So you can notice below that Armin wrote it, so he knew it, and then Joe saw it. Oops, what are you doing, Tina? Okay. It's been seen by those people. Below, you can tell Joe saw it, but Armin hasn't seen it yet, but Joe put it in the finish, referenced the finish schedule for him. So, and he marked that comment resolved. So that's one way, that's another way that your real-time communications can be monitored. By being dark blue, they've been resolved, and they say resolved. The comment above is still white. It's open for commenting. And once the comment is made, it gets stored in immutable storage. It cannot be deleted after someone has replied to it or seen it. And then finally, in the administrators have a view of this board and authors. You can see in the actions column in the background on the far right-hand side, you see a blue dot, a edit box, and a delete email, and then there's a circle, looks like a clock or a counterclockwise clock. If you clicked on that, that gives you the participants visited documents. And this one I find very valuable too, because you can, I don't really want to say you want to catch somebody, but you can just say, hey, look, I've noticed you haven't looked at anything yet, or you've only looked at a few sections. Would you mind please taking a look at a couple more sections for me to make sure that we're doing this the right way or the way you want to do it? But it tells you when they've looked at those spec sections and what they visited. So that's one of our ways of making sure that we keep the collaboration and communication free flowing and get people's input. So any questions? Okay. So I mentioned audit trail a little bit earlier. An audit trail is one of our features that can, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but it could save you if you needed to use it in a court of law. It is stored also in immutable storage, cannot be changed, and it tracks it from the moment the document is created. And you can see here that the levels of changes that Ted went through this document in May, he added, manufactured, didn't make a choice. Those are choice groups. Probably doing a demonstration here. And then on June 18th, he went in and looked at it and made a change. He added ladders, and then he added ship's ladders and finalized it later on in the morning. So you can see the date stamp and the time stamp of when those changes were made. And the benefit to the audit trail is you can find out who made the change. You could go back and ask them why the change was made. And if it's a valid reason, leave it. If it's not valid, you could find out a different way to do it or come to a different agreement.
Okay, so pulling all this together, how does the collaboration actually work? Can you actually reduce RFIs? Can you give us an example of how this actually happened on a project?
Yeah, I had a project where we were doing structural ceiling glazed curtain walls. It was a multi-story building over 17 floors. And the project architect and I discussed inviting others to view this. And what we did was we had 9 commenters look at it, and it ranged from the quality person from the firm to the product rep, the product manufacturer, the installer, the building envelope consultant, and others. And what we had was a robust conversation about different items in the section. There were 53 comments. It took us about 2 weeks to complete the section, but with all that input, they've just put the last few pieces of glass in, and there have been no RFIs and there have been no change orders. So why is this important? I want to highlight a study Dave brought to my attention. It was done in 2012-ish, so it's a little old, but I think things have only gotten worse since then. But at that time, they said on average, there were 800 RFIs per project. And they said that RFIs were roughly 10 RFIs per $1 million in construction. And they did a study, and in the study, they found that architects spent an average of 8 hours. This is architects only. This doesn't include consulting engineers, contractors, subcontractors, anyone else that may be involved. So just the architectural hours alone, 8 hours. So you take that 8 hours times 800 hours times 8 hours, you're about 6,400 hours. I don't know what your billable rates are, but that's a little, it's over $500,000 per RFI. I think it's safe to say over $500,000 per RFI that you've lost in profit because you're answering questions that didn't get taken care of during the design process and the documentation process. So that's why we're trying to minimize the amount of RFIs we get on a job. It costs the architect time. It costs the specifier time. It costs the contractor time. It's just overall not good for the health of the project. So that's why we're trying to minimize it. And that study was done by Navigant Construction Group. If anyone wants to, I think you can find it on Google.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any additional questions.
Yeah, please ask questions, and then you can jump into Conspectus Cloud here and show you a few things pretty quickly.